this mic working? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Good evening, everybody. This is the December 10th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll. Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidtke?
Present, sir.
Riley?
Yes.
Pusdesris?
Present.
Brenda Cloutier is out of town this evening, so she's excused. Mr. Budny?
Present.
Mr. Van Oz? And Costick. So we have a quorum. Next, take a motion to approve tonight's agenda, unless there's any additions.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and supported, the agenda be approved as distributed.
There's a correction on the agenda.
Okay.
Number 15.
Sir?
Next meeting date is not December the 10th. That's today.
Yep, good catch. So, Derek, what are you proposing?
Second Tuesday of the month. I think it's on your agenda, corrected, Bill. No, it's not. It's February, I think February 11th.
We usually don't meet in January, so it's February.
February.
The second Tuesday.
February 11th.
February 11th.
February 11th.
Yep.
That would be 2020. So we're making progress. With that, any other items on the agenda? If not, all in favor, indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda's approved. Next, we have two sets of minutes to approve. First, the November 12th meeting, and I'll take one motion for the October 8th meeting, unless somebody has a question on either. Want to make a motion, Jim?
You want me to do them separately, or?
Okay with me, unless somebody has a question.
Okay, I'm gonna, we don't hear a question, we'll,
Motion is to approve.
motion to approve the minutes for both November 12th and October 8th.
For support.
Support.
Moved and supported that the minutes be approved for November 12th and October 8th. Is there any discussion or questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, the minutes are approved. Next, we have item 6 on the agenda, approval of the bills, our vouchers for our public service operations, mostly the water and sewer and refuse systems. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the bills.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported that the vouchers be approved as displayed in your packet. Any questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's passed. Next, we have a statement of revenues and expenditures, which is just an update from the finance director of the township as to where we stand with our water and sewer revenues and our expenditures for the year, refuse as well. And if there aren't any questions, we'll just receive and file those reports. Item number 8 is approval of the treasurer's report for November of 2019.
I make a motion we approve the treasurer's report.
Support.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. So, we're all the way to the public comment, and there are a number of people in the audience tonight. And from looking everybody over, I think you all want to talk about stormwater or drainage. Anybody have anything else to talk about? Okay, so we'll focus on that. I wish I were taller so I could see everybody over the clear, but at any rate. So the first thing what we'll do is we'll start out tonight with a presentation. And then we'll open it up for any questions. And I think maybe we should have some discussion at the table first so you'll get a sense of where we're going to go. Do you want to outline, Derek, what we're going to consider tonight, or you want me to?
Sure. I can outline it. Okay. Over the past couple of months, obviously, the DPS Commission has reviewed an issue that was brought to our attention with drainage at 2 different locations. One was on Swan Island, and one was on the north end of the island on Parke Lane. So we had our engineers review the situations at both locations. There are a variety of different site visits took place. not only with our engineers, but also with a variety of members of the DPS Commission. And the engineers came up with a couple of preliminary plans to address some of the issues that were presented to us and that we saw when we went to those locations. In addition to that, they formulated some cost estimates for the proposed solutions, which the DPS Commission has reviewed, and we had a study session ahead of this meeting to go over the proposed designs and also the preliminary cost estimates. So what we're going to be discussing tonight are those preliminary cost estimates, those proposed designs. If the DPS Commission chooses to this evening, on the agenda is an action item to recommend to the Township Board to move forward with engineering and also bidding for the proposed work that we're looking at tonight. Because it's an unbudgeted expense, the funding for those projects, the engineering would come out of fund balance. It's required to go to the Township Board for consideration. So we had spoke to the residents across the variety of different meetings that we had reviewed these issues and took all your name and phone numbers and had mentioned that we wanted to provide an opportunity for the residents to speak on the proposed designs, to give your input, to give us any feedback that you would like to, and afford you the opportunity to speak with the DPS Commission on these issues. So all of you received phone calls from me over the past couple of days letting you know that this would be that opportunity, at least one opportunity. Once, if it gets to the Township Board, there'll be additional opportunities then. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for public input relative to what we're talking about tonight. This would be just the first of many steps. So our engineers are in the audience tonight. They have some diagrams and some imagery, as well as some cost estimates that they're going to be going over with the DPS Commission, and then also you'll have the opportunity to speak on those as well. So in saying all that, Bill, if you have anything to add, feel free to do so, but I would recommend introducing the engineers to come up and go over the scope of work.
So what we're going to do procedurally, and a couple people just walked in, we're talking about drains. We got to the drain part of the meeting. And I propose that we do, since most people I recognize are from the Park Lane area, we'll do that drain first. And there's two options. And then we'll do Swan Island second. So again, I just want to state what we're going to consider tonight as an action item is recommending that the detailed engineering, we've been doing engineering analysis of what will work, looking at the history, what were past records indicate, what was attempted many, many years ago, as Mr. Zimmerman knows, and maybe some of the others of you do. But what we're now talking about is spending money to do the detailed engineering of drawing plans that will be submitted to Wayne County because they own the drain supposedly. And even though they never help us or hardly ever have helped us with the drain, just like the roads, had to get that in there. But, and then the plans have to go to the MDEQ. It's no longer MDEQ, it's the State of Michigan Environmental Department that's been renamed under Governor Whitmer. Used to be the MDEQ. And then in the case of Park Lane, the outfall will have to be permitted by the Corps of Engineers because it goes into the canal. So we have to prepare plans that'll meet all those requirements. And so our recommendation, if we take that action tonight, we'll go to the Township Board at their first meeting in January, and hopefully they'll approve it to go forward. We can begin the detailed plans, okay? And with that, I think we set the stage. Would you come up and explain the two options? We have two gentlemen from our Rains Engineering, Bruce and Joe, who've been working on this, and then we'll open it up for comments from the commission, if there are any, and then open up to the public. So there are two options.
Again, Bruce Hammond, Joe Gerasati from the CE Rains Company. What we're going to talk about a little bit tonight is the two options that have been mentioned. I just have a couple slides to make it a little bit easier for everybody to see the areas that we're talking about. So hold on just a second here. Come on. But anyways, you're correct. We were tasked by the commission to look at the two areas that were experienced flooding in the spring and summer of this year, specifically Swan Island and Parke Lane and Meridian. This is the first area that we are talking about here. You have Parke Lane, Meridian, and there are the water in the ditches due to the lake level. Basically, the water pushed back into these ditches and areas, and the water remained there through the spring and throughout the summer. So we looked at ways of relieving it. I'm just going to go over the kind of the general outline of it. Joe here will be able to answer any specific questions on it. So what our scope of work that we're looking at right now is to basically, I didn't go far enough down, but to go down to Harbor Point, regrade the ditches on the west side here and some on the east side. Basically is to get the water around the corner here to where you see this little area right here. This is a right-of-way for a street that never was constructed called Elsa. I'll just show you real quick on the, this is the tax map of the area, and this is the right-of-way that I'm talking about right here, Elsa. So basically is to get the water from here and around here to Elsa, and at that point to construct a spot for a pump, for a temporary or a portable pump in that area. So when the water flows over there into what we call a wet well, and then the pump pumps it up and pumps it back out to the canal, keeping the water in the ditches to keep it flowing and hopefully keep the area dry during the higher water times. And also we have some thought about constructing a berm right here to keep any water that may accumulate here or come over the bank and into the ditches and flood the road. And we're going to try to keep the water from coming back is put check valves. They're called, we call them red valves, but they'll help as if the water backflows this way, it will close it off, and the only way it'll let the water out is in this direction from the pump. So only water will go in one direction, so it won't come back, and then it'll drain the ditches in this area and hopefully help out with the yard, any other areas that get wet, yards or anything like that. So that's basically the project that we're looking at. So if anybody's got any questions or any thoughts on it, we're here to answer them.
Bruce, under the proposed scope of work that you have provided here with the reworking the ditches, and this is the second option of two that were considered.
Yes.
What could residents expect as far as an impact to their private property as a result of the work that's being proposed?
Impact? Well, basically, it would give the ditches would give the water around their houses if it gets around their houses, or it would give that an area to go to relieve it, and then with the pump we could keep the water level down so it would drain.
I guess during the construction process, what would be the impact? So,
well, it'd be the excavation in front of their houses. There'll be times where you have to remove the driveways and put new culverts in. And so there'd be times where there'd be without a driveway. You would end up with possibly more than likely a deeper ditch than is currently there now.
We would strive to make the ditches at least maintainable.
Oh, yes.
Mowable.
Yeah, with grades and stuff like that, yeah.
And when a culvert is removed, typically on any one of our projects, it's usually a day job, right?
Yes.
Usually it's not.
That's getting the culvert in.
Not going to tie you up for 2 or 3 days.
No, it would only be like that day, if
Typically.
the whole day, yeah, typically.
Yeah.
because I know that we were talking about changing the pitch of the ditch in certain areas, so it means changing the culvert pipe ditch underneath some of the driveways, which would mean tearing up the end of the driveway putting a new piece of pipe in at a different pitch and then replacing the concrete at the
Yes.
at the bottom half of the driveway.
Yep.
So, just so residents know, this is not, you know, the work that's being proposed here is not, you're gonna notice it while it's being done. It's not something that's gonna be, you know, something that's very minimal as far as the impact. There is gonna be some disruption down there if this should happen, so.
Joe, you have prepared 2 cost estimates. Without getting into all the details, the more expensive one includes closing the ditches, basically from Harbor Point north to and closing the ditches. The other one is redoing all the ditches.
Correct.
You explain the 2 cost factors.
We prepared two estimates here. One of them is a storm system, which, if I'm not mistaken, like 30 years ago, we proposed the storm system, and the county denied us. I think didn't have the fund to build the storm system. And the other proposal, we came up to clean all the ditches, fixing all the culvert, and like Derek said, you know, this will impact people's driveways, and we're gonna have a new slope away from people driveway all the way to the intersection of Parke and Meridian, and eventually to the canal. Both option will work, and both option require a pump because they have to go to a wet well. Now, again, we proposing a portable pump because the high water is not all the time there. So when there's a high water and affecting all the ditches, so the township can bring the portable water and start pumping the ditches till the level go down. And like Bruce said, we're gonna put a check valve on the outlet. So if the water level go up, it doesn't go back and refeed the ditches. So it plug all the water to come into the ditches. So the pump would work much better this way, so we don't have to recycle the water. And again, like in both cases, we require a county permit, DEQ permit, and Corps of Engineer permits for both of them.
All right, the cost estimate for enclosing the ditches is $452,000.
Correct.
Cost estimate for
Regrade
open
the
ditches, but
and
fixing
culverts.
the ditches is $303,000.
Correct.
And I would say, we'll open this up for public comment. I want to ask the commission if they have any questions, but I want you to know that each one of us on the commission here have been up there. I've been up there 3 or 4 times, and I walked through with the engineers a couple of times, so did a couple other commissioners. We've all been up there and looked at it. And does the commission have any more questions based on what you already know and have in front of you?
The only thing I would add is, if the action item passes, and we go forward, we will be contacting Wayne County, asking them to participate. It won't be that we're gonna count on them, but we do feel that we need to, and we should be asking them, since it's their ditches, asking them to participate. And who knows, we might get lucky and they might do something. But that would be another part of that. This whole process is not going to go quick. It's going to take time. We don't, just sending something to Wayne County, requesting a permit, we have no control over how long they're going to take to even look at that and get back to us. So it's not something that's going to be done overnight.
And I just have to add this. I don't want to be negative about Wayne County, but I've gotten that way over roads and damn bridges. I say that for the public. We've asked them to help us with drains before, and all they ever contribute is added costs. And I can give you numerous projects. When they get their permit people looking at it, and when we did the drain at front of Westcroft Gardens, we raised the road. Their drain caved in. Their guardrail caved in. We used our road money to go fix it. Took us a year and a quarter for them to approve our plans. And during that time, they added a $150,000 cost, which we objected to. And we got them to back off of it. And I don't know whether they made up the rules. Sounded to me like they did, but I was pretty frustrated with them. And I hate to recite these things, but I think it's worthwhile out of frustration. At the corner of Horse Mill and Park Lane, when we put the bike path down Horse Mill, and Phil, you'll remember this, we tried to solve a drainage problem at the intersection, and we were going to run a storm drain from the Presbyterian Church across the street. So when we did that, we thought, well, we encountered a big void under the pavement, under the middle of the intersection, about a 6-inch void. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
County inspector came out and shut the job down because our engineers made the decision in the field to go out and, well, let's cut more pavement out than was planned because we got to fix this void. The next day I was out there and stood at a meeting. I think you were there, Jim, and maybe you were there, Ted. And the county inspector who shut the job down, kicked the contractor off the job, denied it and said, that's not what I meant, when his bosses were there. And we never did fix that void because we said, to hell with it. I hate to talk that way, but it's very frustrating. So we still have to go to the county and get a permit. So I'm saying that because it's never good news. I'm sorry to say that, but
Mr. Chairman, if I may add a couple of things.
he's going to try to soften my feelings in county.
Just as an order of magnitude, so the residents understand the type of investment that this would be in that area. The township receives about $204,000 per year through its drainage millage. So even at the cheaper option, the lower option, we're looking at like 1.5 years worth of drainage millage funds that'd be dedicated to this one project. So, you know, we don't take lightly the expenditure of dollars. This is a huge expense relative to the income that we receive through the drainage millage. So, would we like to have the $450,000 option? Yeah, that'd be kind of the gold standard. It'd be really nice, but you know, we're trying to do what we can with the limited funds that we have. So we've tried to value engineer this the best that we could to give a functioning system. It might not have all the bells and whistles, but it at least will take care of, I think, the problem that we have up there. But just want the residents to understand, I mean, this is not a small investment relative to the dollars that we get. It's quite a substantial one. So that's being proposed tonight.
All right, any other questions from DPS Commission? Ted?
Just a comment to kind of address what Jim had said. This money is collected from all taxpayers in the community. It's 4,500 residents that the money comes from for this drainage. And so it really behooves us to go to Wayne County and try to jump up and down and get them to cooperate. They really should be doing the job themselves. I mean, it's a Wayne County drain. But before we commit all of that taxpayer money, we need to do our due diligence so we're going to try to do this simultaneous with coming through with doing the engineering, because the engineering has to be done anyway. I don't anticipate Wayne County assisting us in any way, but I do think it's important from a board standpoint because we have to convince 7 members of this board that what we're doing here is just and equal. So we need to go to the county and kind of insist that they participate, knowing that probably they won't, as Bill, the frustration level with the county, as you all know. I mean, if you're using bridges and you're getting tied up in traffic jams, you know what we're dealing with here. But it is important for us to do that. We're not trying to slow the project down. I think the project will move, and I have every confidence that if we do our due diligence, we get our rejection from Wayne County, which we're pretty sure we're going to get, the board will agree that, you know, that's why we collect this money, is to resolve these drainage issues. And in the past, we've done a coordinated effort with residents, where if the residents paid for half for their yards, I mean, we're talking much smaller projects, to utilize these funds. And this is a big project, and none of us is gonna take this anything but very seriously. So just so you know, that's why we're moving in the direction we're moving in. I think it's very important, because we also have to commit the board. We have to get the board to go along with this. And there are 7 members on this board. Jim and I have worked with the DPS for years and years and years, longer than I care to even talk about. But I want you to know where we're coming from with this thing, because I think it's important that all the participating parties get involved. And to do that, we will then assure that we've done our due diligence with all the residents in the township. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. With that, gentlemen, be prepared to answer any questions. We'll start off by inviting any resident on Park Lane to come up and address the board. Speak into the mic, please. Just
Give us
you
your
live on
name.
Park Lane. You don't have to give the address, but
Hi, my name's Heather Burwald, and I live on Park Lane. And I just have a few questions, and just kind of going with your frustrations. At what point is there somewhere we can go above Wayne County to get them to start acting, because we are being neglected? And what recourse do we have? But
well,
that's neither here nor there.
here's the deal that I've experienced. Number one, you're going to a permit division at the county, the engineering division with the county, the drain division with the county.
Mhm.
That's just one level of all their engineers
Right.
and all their different offices. Then you have the higher ups, and then
Well-
finally you have Mr. Palomera, who's our county commissioner, and he's been very helpful when we ask him.
Mhm.
We won't know until we get there, till we approach everybody. And then finally you have the county executive. You can try to call Wayne County
It just seems
and
that,
see if you can get a return phone call. You can email them.
well, and my point is for our
very-
bridges, our
they don't even answer
roads,
me.
our drains, everything, it's like they're not putting any
They don't
money into
even answer me.
Crozio. I
And,
know.
and we do have to deal with them. We can't like go up to the state, or, I mean, we can talk to our representatives, which we do, but they really can't put any pressure on. So we just have to deal with them mostly we just have to be, a pain in their rear, and hopefully we'll get something.
So the issue is, things have become a mess over the last 100 years.
Yes.
And if you look at the taxes, there are no drain monies that they have. The Department of Public Services. They have road money, and they'll tell you that, and they don't. They don't have enough road money to resurface the roads. I mean, our roads are a mess. Middle Belt Road, 7 Mile Road in Livonia is a mess. I mean, you go on and on and on, and that's what we're up against. But there's no specific resource for drain money. Now, the law says they can create a drain district, which is a special assessment district, and they can take this $300,000 and then create a district and assess it back to the property owners. That's the likely scenario if you're out in any place in the state of Michigan, rural areas. That's the way drain commissioners work. They go through the Drain Act.
Okay.
And these improvements are done through special assessment.
Yep.
We have the resources. We've tried to help people with drainage improvements. All we're doing is trying to make you understand.
Yep.
We're going to do everything we can to push forward, but it's very frustrating.
Okay, so here are my questions then from what I was listening to about your proposals. And we may have a little bit of a unique situation with where we're at, because we would be the house with the circular driveway. And when,
Go point to it. You're on the water? Yes, we're right here. Okay, I see it. Okay. Well, my guess is you must be, well, I don't know if somebody buried that culvert before, right? If there's a culvert there, we'll make sure, we'll see if it's working, and if it's at the right elevation. I don't know, have you given any thought to that, about replacing that, or would we have a ditch there? You haven't studied that yet, Joe? Joe, come to the mic. Come to the mic. I guess you both have to be at the mic. We're on television. We're on television. It's not fair to the public.
So there is a culvert running, right?
You want to know if you're going to have a culvert when when
Yeah.
this all ends, or you're gonna have a ditch?
Do you know if the culvert is draining or plugged or?
We do not have a problem with the water right here, but we do have a major problem with water.
You know, you need to come to the mic. We're on television. I'm sorry.
So we don't have the same type of water problems in our front yard as some of the other people do. We've had a major problem with water because when our neighbor built, they had, the Wayne County required them to build high, and put in a French drain. Well, especially this year, the French drain was underwater, so it just kept wet all year. And then whenever you get heavy rains, those ditches can't keep up with the drainage, so the water comes over and it floods our yard. Now, we did just bring in a lot of dirt to try and help remedy that situation, but the reality is that French drain fills up, but I also know that it feeds to the front. So will this, what you're proposing, if it's feeding into the culvert, would that help push that water?
For sure, for sure. So soon once the township give us the go-ahead, we're gonna do some investigation, do a little bit topographic survey. Then we figure out the entire system, and our intent is to rework all the ditches and take all the water away from people front and backyard.
I think that when we looked at the elevations when we were on site, the elevation worked, I think, best the farther to the north you got. I think more of the cutting had to happen the farther south that you went. So if your pipe is acting at a conveyance, so long as it's at the right elevation and there's enough pitch to it to facilitate the conveyance of water from the south to the north, you know, that's what they'll be looking at, whether it satisfies that conveyance requirement, if you're not having water sit there.
Well, we had water. We couldn't even mow our grass in the back.
Right, and that's, we talked about a little bit about that in the study session ahead of this meeting, that, you know, as you improve the drainage at the roadside, it gives an area for the water in the yards to go.
Right.
So that it can be taken away.
Right.
Right now, there's nowhere for it to go, it just sits, right?
That
So-
doesn't mean that, I just want to say this, backyards, people that live on the river, I mean,
Well,
we
we
can't
weren't-
drain the.
Yeah.
Our
lake from-
water, the water level from the river never breached the seawall. The water where we were coming in was coming in from the river through the French drain, because the French drain was underwater and it was just sitting in the French drain, and then it comes up with the water level. And
Didn't some people's backyards get the water breached from the river level
yes, but that's further south.
to the south? Okay. So I guess I'm interpreting your request as, will you be able to keep your drain?
Will we keep our drain, and will it also help because of, like I said, the requirement that they had for raising their property is causing the neighbors to be flooded out? And the French drain isn't enough to keep up with the water, so that, will it give that water another place to go?
I know this has been an issue out there. I don't-
If there's an ability to connect the rear yards to the front roadside drainage and the elevation works,
Right,
then it could potentially give it another area to discharge to.
okay,
But it all depends upon the elevations, and, I mean, we can't make water go uphill without a pump, but if the elevation in the rear of the yard's higher than the ditch line, then it could potentially give an area for the water to go.
Okay.
I don't think we can commit to solving all those problems,
Okay.
like Bill had mentioned, but,
Eric, have your contact information? If
He does.
not, okay, you do?
yes.
Okay, so,
okay. All right,
you can
thank
check
you.
in with Derek and we'll keep you posted how we're doing on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
I have a question. My name is Nasir Raja from Park Lane.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you know, the last time when I came, my understanding was that there are two ways of draining this water. One goes toward the north, and where I live, it is drained in the south, and there's a pump on the south end. My question is, your pump will drain all this area to the north to go toward that canal you are creating?
I think the desire was to take the water from Harbor Point, pull it north.
I don't know where the harbor point is.
Harbor Point is the main, is the first road that intersects Park Lane as you're heading from the north end to the south end.
No, my question is going to drain all those houses?
The desire was to drain everything from Harbor Point north.
I
We were-
am in that, my
Yes.
house is in that,
Yes,
point,
yes.
included in that.
the intent wasn't to reutilize or to incorporate the private pump system that's located
In the house.
on the private property to
Right.
the east.
That's where I was draining.
Because we're unaware of the ownership, the operation, and the functionality of that private pump system.
Okay.
So the goal was to pull everything to the north, including your property.
Yeah.
Yes. Matter of fact, you're not that close to Harbor Point. You're probably midway
Yeah,
on the road on the east side. Yeah.
Okay. So now I'll be draining on this direction, the one you are creating.
The goal would be drain it to the north, correct?
That's my.
Yes.
And we are sure that this system will work. Or this is the best option we have after spending all the money.
This is the most cost-effective option to solve the issues that are presented there. I mean,
Sometimes what happens is a penny wise, pound foolish. We might save the cost, but we might still have the same problem.
no, I think this option is one that the engineers are comfortable with now and into the future.
That's your problem.
You know, I think this is a system that's employed other areas that has had success, and probably is the most responsible way to deal with this, being that we understand the cyclical nature of the water is in the river system is what's causing a lot of these problems. So to install a 747 or 737 out there to solve this problem, when you can do it with a Cessna, you know, that's what makes the most amount of sense here.
No,
So-
my house is I think the lowest in my closest river. I get the most of the water is draining from the other houses too. And I'm going to put my own pump. I hope that works. But your system might drain my water in that area too, or this will be.
As the chairman had mentioned, that this is not intended to address the rear yard drainage problems that a lot of people experience up there. It might give you an area to take that
Discharge.
water to,
Okay,
to
yeah.
discharge to, but this is road drainage. This is roadside drainage. This is not rear yard drainage. So I'll be very clear about the scope of the work and what we're doing there, as the chairman had mentioned.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I want to thank the commission and
Jim.
Jim Zimmerman, Parke Lane. I want to thank the commission for the work that you've put into this, because you've been put a lot of time and your own personal energy into it. And to Derek also, who seems to have spearheaded this project. I've got two or three things that I want to bring up. First was the one that Mrs. Burwald brought up. Each one of the property owners on both sides of the street back in the 80s paid $15,000 each for the road, for their half of the road, and for the ditches to be completed. They were completed, except for that road that never got built. All the drawings exist. Raines and Company has those drawings. And for that $15,000, the county never finished. They never completed the most important part of that project that we paid for.
In other words, these people years ago paid $15,000
Each.
to Wayne County.
To Wayne County, right. And they lost, the excavator got buried when as they were digging that last portion out, which is where the real biggest part of the problem was. And we've contacted them several times after that. I talked to Dale Ream a couple times, and that was back in 2013 and 2014. He was going to talk to the county about it. I never heard anything back from Dale. And but the point is, we've paid for that, and it was never ever completed. Granted, that was almost 30 years ago, but it doesn't. Pardon me?
Was that an assessment?
No, we had to, I'm not real familiar with the term. We had to either pay $15,000 cash, or it would be added to our taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
There was a special assessment for the road improvement, correct?
It was for rebuilding the road. It was a gravel road back then.
That's right. That was to get it paved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There was a special assessment that was assessed at everybody up there that wanted it.
Yes, we took a vote, and the majority of the people voted.
I don't know if the county was the contractor on that. I think they might have had a private contractor doing that.
I believe it was the county. I believe
Want
it.
us to do?
Oh, you're just
I'm
giving
just
us that
giving you
information.
All I'm
Yeah,
doing
that-
is giving you information.
it-
Putting bullets in your
Yeah,
gun.
it's something to take, when we have a meeting with them,
Right.
it's something to take to them.
Correct.
And it wasn't just a road paving, it was also a drainage component was built
It was
into
a
that?
total, they redid all the ditches. It was to regrade all the ditching and for the system to get out to the river. And then we had this big dam at the river, and that's the part that never got completed. Mrs. Burwald had an issue where there's several of us that we chose to pay the county the permit for the culverts. And there was an added cost for the culverts, which was minimal. And the culverts, by my assessment, where there are culverts, we do get good drainage. It's after the culverts that where we've ran into problems. There's one more issue and I forgot it. Okay, thank you very much.
Who's next? Kevin. Please give your
Kevin
name.
Flavin, Park Lane. As I'm looking at this, thank you very much for you spearheading it along with Derek, looking at these issues. I think there are multiple water issues that I have particular issues and the people on the river have particular issues. And what I'm some of the thoughts that we've had over, I don't know whether the code, the municipal code, says how high seawalls have to be. And I think there should be a review of what the rules and regulations are on the height of the seawalls and where the seawalls can be open and have holes for drainage and that sort of thing. That seems to be a major issue. That is, the river water is coming into our ditches and getting stuck. The other question I had is, I don't, at some point there should be some kind of estimate or guesstimate what the water, how high the water is going to be over the next, whether some kind of hydrology.
Great Lakes, you mean?
For the Great Lakes, in other words, are we spending a ton of money for something that's going to, that is a cyclical thing that, we deal with it for a couple years and then it goes away? Are we spending all that money and then we'll have, it won't be used for another 10 years? If there is going to be high water continuously, then that seems to be a different issue than if it's something that, hits, comes and goes.
It's a good point, but who knows?
Well, I know that NOAA and some of the Great Lakes Authority, they do guesstimate those kind of things, and they do look at, drainage estimates.
Mr. Zimmerman, I think, gets that report from the Army Corps every month. That's the best one that I've seen.
Well, and that's the other question. The Army Corps, what I'm noticing is, and I don't know whether this is on new construction, if you enclose the ditch, if the ditch is open and you pipe the water, do you have to have a permit for that to put the pipe in?
Yes.
Okay. And are people that are putting new construction in actually getting permits to do that? Because I think that the new construction that's taken place north of where Meridian and Park Lane come together, I think that has exacerbated the water on the the lower as it goes south and north. The other issue is if you're going to, I'm not clear on whether you're boxing the ditches and piping them all for that 400,000 or whether they'll be open.
$300,000 project that I favor, just because of money. We only have $600,000 in our drain fund. Tonight, we're talking about spending half of it, $300,000. If we went to the higher project and enclosed the ditches, that's $450,000.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get
That
clear.
is enclosing them.
Okay,
So I'm talking to our engineers. We know that the open drains will work. We want to make them mowable so that they're not unsightly. They can't be done everywhere probably, but it'll be better than what it is today.
I'm not clear on what you're saying.
When I say mowable, maintainable, we try to make the ditches so they aren't totally, 6 foot deep or 4 foot deep, so you can't mow them. That's going to be our goal.
Oh, mowable.
Mobile, yeah.
I thought you was
That's
mobile.
what I mean, so you
Yeah.
can mow them
Got it.
reasonably, and the grade that's maintainable, you can maintain it
Correct.
without a ton of effort. That's our goal, at least. We haven't seen the final plan come back yet either. Now, you raised a few points, so did I answer your question on the higher cost and the 300 versus the 450?
So the 450 is enclosing,
Closing, right.
enclosing all the ditches that are open,
Right.
and then the 300,
Having mostly open ditches.
and what's the value added there for the 350,000?
Value added?
What is, in other words, where is the money gonna go from that expenditure? You're gonna clean up the ditches and then,
And replace all the culverts so that the system will work properly. That's our goal.
Re-ditch the ditches so that they're at the right levels and
So that they will flow.
flow the water over to the north end and pump it to the river.
okay. Is there a way that this can be done in an à la carte manner, that you don't have to spend the whole 350? In other words, it seems to me that the backflow seems to be a big issue. If you stop the backflow, maybe that would, in other words, it seems to me there might be chunks that you can do that would help, that don't cost, $350. And,
I don't think so, based
okay.
on what I've
That-
learned.
yeah.
Well,
I
that's
don't
one
know.
of the questions.
Grades aren't proper.
Yeah.
Some of you have water today in your ditch. A couple of you do. Some have just mushy ground. A couple are dry. So it has to be fixed. It's just not functioning properly.
Well-
From just driving down the street, I saw
It's
that.
still a system.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
gotta be
And it's
completed
the
at
whole-
once.
You need a
Okay.
complete system.
Then on the Meridian side, in the paper road, you're going to build a culvert there, or a containment?
Yes.
And how?
A berm.
What's that?
There's low ground there from the road level,
Right,
and water comes across that now.
Right.
You probably know that.
yes.
The idea was to go back where the tree line is on the west side of the road and create a berm, whether it's 3 feet high or whatever, to prevent the water from coming back that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And and I went out there and looked at that with our engineers. Mr. Zimmerman was with us, actually. And you have to go out there and look at it before you can really comprehend what it's like. And so
Just to
that's the
answer
plan.
your-
You see that red thing? That's the berm.
Mm-hmm.
To answer the question
Yes.
about the drains, on Alba Drive, Wayne County came, fined 3 residents and made them open their drains up. They had closed them up.
Well, I think that's a major issue, and I think that I'm seeing it, at least, when I drive by to get on and off the island, I see these things being filled in,
Sure.
and they're not supposed to be.
Well, Wayne County, if that's brought to their attention, it's happened to 3 houses that I know of when I was living on Alba, where they came in, made them open the ditches.
Well, I think that, obviously, we can get into the minutia of water flow, but, I think that makes a big difference to the people that are at the end of the,
We certainly
at the
plan
low
on-
spot.
We certainly plan on opening all the ditches through this flow system so that we're gonna correct what's there to make it work adequately or better. I don't know that we're gonna get into opening other people's drains up. If they've closed them up, that's Wayne County's issue. And we'll have to get them if that's causing a problem.
Well, if they're supposed to have a permit to put that in and they don't, that's an issue.
But
that I-
that's Wayne, unfortunately, that's Wayne County's gotta take care of that.
Wayne
We
County
can't
will
take-
not issue a permit to close your drain.
Then those were closed without permission.
Correct.
Okay. The other issue seems to be that when the road work was done, the new water lines and everything, there is still soil left in the drains, and that's blocking the regular flow. And,
Take a look at that.
so some of that water that is still stuck there,
Stuck because of that?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Flavin's got an area on the north end of his property where there's some sediment in the,
You're aware of that?
in and
then?
around a pipe, yeah. And we've been in contact with the contractor about that. They've gotta come back and still clean that up, so.
And I'm aware of that also, and thanking,
On your first question about the break walls and the point about making sure they're high enough and that there's a place for water to retreat back into the river. In addition to his responsibilities, Derek's responsibilities for water, sewer, garbage, and all the stuff we deal with, all the good stuff we deal with, he's also works with the Planning Commission and Zoning Board on all these code enforcement, and I think there's some discussion going on about.
What, it has been an issue. It was something I think I brought up at the DPS meeting a couple of months ago.
yes.
You know, but those end up becoming ordinance issues, and ordinance issues rest with the planning commission, they rest with the township board. If there's universal support or some sort of support from the township residents, if there's an issue that they see that's being caused by not having universal mandate for a seawall height or something along those lines, that would be a conversation that would be had with those bodies. And my suggestion would be for you to bring that concern maybe to the township board to facilitate or to start that conversation. And then they would look at it, they would research it, they review it. I think Commissioner Kennedy had mentioned a very valid point. You know, what do you do with individuals that don't have steel seawalls if they have an unimproved shoreline? You know, do you mandate that they have to have a certain height of unimproved shoreline? You know, there are a lot of questions, and there's a process for ordinance adoption that you vet all those comments, all those concerns, provide input from the residents or opportunities for input from the residents on those issues. And then if there's a consensus and whatnot, then it becomes an ordinance. So that's a different process and something that can be considered if the residents have some interest in considering it. So.
I will do that, and I know you mentioned that to me before, and I appreciate that. Thank you. The other question I had is on the berm that you're talking about. I don't know that there was water. I mean, that area was, I don't know whether you saw it during the summer when it was flooded. Some of the water actually backs up from the paper road down south, goes south. So the berm, I don't even know whether that would do whether that is necessary. Part of the reason the road was flooded was the backflow from the paper road. And so I'm wondering if that.
I think that there was some rough topography that Rains had, and maybe the engineers can address it better, but the length of the berm was based upon the idea that the elevation increases the farther south you go in that BASF property. So they tapered the berm out once that elevation increased, because the majority of the water flow from the flooded woods that, you know, the canal was flooding those woods, that water coming out of the woods would be blocked by the berm as designed in this overhead here. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It partially answers my.
Because the issue was that water coming out of the canal, going into the woods, then flowing into that ditch line or the lower area along the road, and then backflowing into the new drainage system, which would then go into the pump, and you're basically just recirculating that water. So
Right.
you need to eliminate that from occurring.
So will this plan eliminate the backflow?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And can you do just that part of the project without, in other words, if you eliminated the backflow, I think that would, you know, when you get the wind the wrong way, you get everything backs up. So you get, you know, the ditches can fill right up when the wind is. So my thought was if there's a backflow stop there, that would eliminate some of that.
You're saying that until this year, the ditches along Park Lane, the water went away, in the ditches.
Yeah, well, yes and no.
All right, well, people in the audience are shaking no. And so what we don't want to do is design something and go forward with something that doesn't address moving water.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying is it seems to me that there are more issues here that, you know, more studying may need to be done.
Well, we're going to, if we authorize this, the engineering's going to be done where we're taking exact shots. So we'll have it down to the inches.
Yeah, so a lot of the questions, the comments, the concerns that you're mentioning, they'll be vetted in the engineering process. I understand your point. If you're eliminating some of the water coming out of the canal, which is inundating the ditch system that runs along that road, but I don't know necessarily if there are other issues there where you have outfalls that are going out into the river, the canal system, that are backflowing into that ditch line, aside from just the canal water coming out of the woods and into the ditch line. So that's where the engineering will play into it. And at that point, if you have those conveyances, you can eliminate those, stick with one, and then have basically a closed system, which is kind of what's being proposed here. So a lot of those questions and concerns, I think, will be addressed in the engineering process.
And how will that be presented to the homeowners?
As far as the final engineering?
Well, the proposed, what you're proposing and how it will affect everybody.
I think what we're proposing is not, what's going to end up coming out of engineering shouldn't be that dissimilar from what's out right now on this paper. They'll do their fine tuning. They'll make sure there aren't any, issues that they weren't aware of. That'll be part of the engineering process, and it'll be a real specific design. This is a rough design, but it shouldn't be that dissimilar to what you see here.
Okay.
I guess in answer to your question, I mean, everybody's concerned about it, so one thing we could say that we will do, when we take bids, they gotta come back to this commission, so that we can evaluate them and then recommend to the township board approval of a contract. Maybe at that point, we could invite everybody back and say, come review the plans. We're gonna be voting on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have
proceeding.
an open,
Now-
we'll have the discussion on it, and certainly we could
And if-
invite you back.
What if the county, a lot of things can happen. What if the county adds $100,000 to any project out there, and we can't get them to back off? What if the bids come in $100,000 more than we're projecting here, which I hope they won't, because usually the engineers are pretty accurate. I mean, what if the Corps of Engineers says, no, for your outfall, you gotta build a concrete structure at the outfall or something? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
So I guess the best thing to do is, once we get the plan done and we get the bids in hand, we invite everybody to come back and you can look at the plans and see just what the heck we're doing.
Okay, and,
I don't mind that at all.
well, is there some plan, if we're not able to spend $350,000 or $400,000, is there some plan to make improvements that would be much less expensive?
I see what you're saying. We can always look at that at the time.
Because I think that makes sense.
I think the goal here was the engineers wanted to present a plan that they felt would solve the problem. So that's what we're moving forward with, is what the engineers are confident will solve the problem. When we start peeling the project back to something less than that, then our confidence level in addressing the issue gets less and less. So we're moving forward, I think, or the proposal tonight is move forward with the plan that we feel will best address it with the dollars that we have. And then, if it gets to that point, we're kind of going to have to go back to the drawing board. I did want to use the opportunity to express to the residents, as Trustee Budny had mentioned, I think earlier, if you think that this is going to happen tomorrow, please temper your expectations, because this is still a lengthy process even from this point. And there's a lot that can happen between now and a shovel in the ground that can throw this thing off the rails. So, there's permitting issues, there's design issues, there's county issues, all these different things. So,
I'm aware of what you're saying. I think the concern is that there are homeowners that have water issues right now, and their homes are, inches or feet from flooding. So I know that probably has more to do with the river side of the, water coming in. But, but thank you very much for.
Well, and I think it's safe to say, I mean, we got to this point over the last 3-4 months, right? We got here because this commission has discussed this, and nobody's saying stop at this point. I mean, we're going to try to help.
I appreciate that very much, and I say thank you very much for that. I also
It's
saw
been
that.
my problem, but we can't drain the river. We all know that.
Well, it's the new trash haulers, refuse folks have been above and beyond
Good.
trying to help. And I also saw that there was an award for the work that was done on Parke Lane, and I appreciate that. So
Oh, yeah,
thank
for
you.
our contract. We had a good contractor.
Right.
So thank you very much
Thank you
for
on that.
everything that's been done so far.
On the
and
refuse,
Special
it's very
thank you.
gratifying. The commission took a chance on this company.
Well, I know that
Saved $400,000 on a refuse bill.
I appreciate everything that
Several of
work.
us spent a couple days in a row, 5 hours a day interviewing firms.
well, they've
It was fun.
they've
Talk
bent
about
bent over
garbage.
backwards to make them.
Okay,
to do
thanks,
it right.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we have the map back up that was up before? Maureen Flavin, Park Lane. Okay, so my house is, this is our property right here. Okay, I have a question. It's my understanding that starting at the house, the new construction house that's next to the Burwalds on the riverside, that is the break point, and anything from there down, from there south, the water drains south. So I'm understanding you to say now that anything from Harbor Point, that's gonna be the break point now, and now all of that water from all those houses that used to drain south are now gonna drain up to my property up this way?
The answer to that, I'm only familiar with the west side of the street. There's a high point there too, so.
Well, from
Flavin, I
right
think-
here,
Yeah.
my understanding is from this house down, all the water drains south on the culverts. Now I'm understanding you to say that everything from Harbor Point or Harbor Light, whatever the harbor is, that
houses that don't.
north, all that water from all those extra houses now are now gonna come up this way around my property that way. Is that correct?
We don't have the topo here with us, but I think the bigger issue with the elevation is on the west side, as the chairman had mentioned, and that's where there is a high point about halfway down. On the east side, and once again, I don't have the topo in front of me, but just from visually observing that area, the eastern side of the road is far more flat. And I'd have to review the topo to see if it's not already going that direction anyways, because I don't believe there's a conveyance from the east side of the road to the west side of the road that we're aware of on the Harbor Point intersection. Okay, so it might be going that way. We'd have to check the topo to see if that's
Okay.
the case.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Number 3.
All right.
There's a serious design flaw with the system, and the design flaw comes in with the French drains that the township mandated Mr. Finazzo to put in. Mr. Finazzo put a great deal of money into this. The township, the residents in the area, we petitioned the township not to put in the French drains, but the township still made Mr. Finazzo go through the expenses of the French drains. Those French drains open to the river, as Mrs. Flavin just stated. Mr. Finazzo's house is on the break point. His south side feeds the south, the north side feeds the north. With those French drains open, the river's high, the pump's gonna be running all the time. The township should never have forced them to put in those French drains. He was graded fine to get that water to the road.
This commission's not familiar with that, so,
Those French drains, they discharge to the river, right?
They do,
They discharge to the front of the property.
they do, and that's correct.
So, once again, those are things we'll have to review during engineering,
Right.
so.
And that was the citizens' complaint was, at the time he had to do that, the water wasn't high, and we told him if this water's coming up, when the water comes up, you're gonna be flooding the people on both sides. So, again, there's a flaw there that,
engineers know about this Finazzo house? Is that,
But
that's the modern
that-
house, the
Yeah,
modern
and
looking
that's
house?
the water side.
It's the modern looking house on the water.
Talking about- Who, Mr. Zimmer, who did you, you say you
I
did
have-
petitions, to who? Who did you give them to?
Tim Thompson, we had 7 different
Alright.
neighbors that came
Alright.
down. I have the minutes of the meetings.
Okay.
Building inspector.
Yep.
Building inspector at
Yep.
the time, correct.
Okay.
Okay, good point. Yes, Cheryl, come. Please give your name and street.
Carol Tenario, Park Lane. One of our neighbors who couldn't be here, Don, he's right on the corner of Park Lane and I guess Harbor Point. He just wanted me to ask you, say this is approved, you know, the money in that. He wants to know who pays for that and if, you know, we taxpayers, you know, will be absorbing, you know, some of that cost. You know, would there be an estimate about, like, say, how much our taxes would go up?
Ted, you wanna explain the way the drainage bills work,
Well, if the board approves this project, it'll come out of the drain fund.
Won't
Okay.
cost you anything.
And-
I mean,
and-
anything,
And those
anything
funds
more.
are taxpayer.
Okay, I'll let him know then.
So it's not an assessment that's being proposed, if that's
Okay,
what your question
all right,
is.
We
These
could do
funds are
that.
tax paid already.
Soften the blow for the
Yes,
drain
soften
fund.
the
Thank you for, how
You're
much
paying
did
drain
you,
taxes.
Also, if there's, you know, you could be small but be mighty, and I believe that. Now,
I
but
just
if
wanted
there's
to-
anything we can, like, say, I can do, or we neighbors can do who are on Park Lane that might be able to help with Wayne County or put pressure on or leverage, you know, from what Mr. Zimmerman knows, please let us know. You know, we would be willing,
So-
willing to help fight for.
You know, and just
for what
by
we
way
need.
of example, last winter, but it was started the summer before. Hawthorne, you know, the Hawthorne condos, you know where they all are? Everybody know where? So there's a drain that runs from Hawthorne Ponds behind Meridian Middle School and runs towards the airport property, where the soccer fields are. And it was plugged. And it was all full of woods and big tall weeds that you couldn't even see through it. There were 12-foot high weeds, and we had to wait till fall to engineer it. And we resolved that. We built, I forget how long it was, but a couple thousand feet. We created a ditch again and had to replace a culvert from the pond. The total project cost was under $35,000, and it addressed probably 60 or 80 condos. Made life better for them. So just to give you a proportion, that affected at least 40 condos, and in a positive way. And that was $35,000, the whole project cost. But it was all ditching and one culvert, maybe 2 culverts. But and this is different. It's in terms of the number of properties being affected. But we looked at it, and we're going to go for the engineering, and we'll have more answers.
Okay, yeah, but if there's anything we can do, please let us know, and thank you so much.
welcome.
Who else would like to
Restores my
speak?
faith in government. And I would, at this time, like to give a shout out to Derek. When I first told him about this problem, it was his first day on the job. Poor thing.
And he's still here.
We're glad we got him, that's
And
for
within
sure.
48 hours, he was out there and, you know, pounding the pavement and helping us out, and you got somebody good.
Thank you. We are happy.
No, you have somebody good. We work for you.
Not even blushing. Anybody else wish to speak on this project? Speak or ask questions, whatever.
Chris Blakeman, Park Lane. we're closer to Harbor Point, whatever you call it. This sounds like, to me, a lot of money that it's not even gonna be in play, and what's the water levels on the river gonna be? Because next summer is gonna be bad. None of this is gonna be in play, and then the money's gonna get spent, and then we're gonna be 10 years or 20 years of it down. I don't know, but maybe the engineers need to look at what's the prediction on the height of the river, and that's one issue. I like Jim's idea on the French drain. It needs a gate valve on there so it can't run reverse. That should be installed. Something, I don't know. That seems to be flooding all the ditches on my side.
Has
the
it
river
affected your
side.
property?
And then, of course, I have water coming in, when it's high, it's coming in my backyard, but it just stays there. It's not feeding any ditches, so we pump it back out and raise our grade. But I think it's a lot of money that's gonna be really expensive and way too late, and I'm against any more taxes or even spending the money, because ultimately, it's tax money of some
Well, I
sort.
appreciate that. It's certainly crossed my mind that we can't solve the problems from the high water in the Great Lakes.
Right, and I agree. I like the idea of maybe spending a couple $1,000s on a couple of pumps that we could say, hey, we're having some issues down here. Can we get, one for that side of the island or two for this side of the island or whatever, $5,000 or $10,000. That's my vote. And
Well, I appreciate that thought. I really do. Thank you. Okay, well, I appreciate that thought, and I'll ask our engineers to, maybe you ought to address that issue.
Yeah, I'm for spending as little as possible. A couple of pumps that we could have access to.
Maybe that's a solution. Don't know. Ms. Burwell.
You had said something about, just a minute ago, about how you helped the people with Hawthorne with the drainage behind Meridian, talking about clearing out some of the dishes, making sure that everything was flowing, and you were able to do that for $30,000. Isn't that similar to what they're proposing here? I mean, I don't know.
No.
I mean, I know you've talked about berms and everything, but I'm thinking about what's on our
But
roadside.
With that project, we just cleaned out what was there so
Right.
that there would be a flow. Here, we're redoing your ditches,
Okay.
as well as the pump, which is I wish we could get a pump for $5,000.
Right.
The cost estimate for the pump station alone of this is almost $80,000. So
This is portable.
I was
This
just
is
trying to give
portable.
an example.
Right. No, and I understand that. So like I said, I'm just looking for
Yeah.
ways, if we get shot down, for waking ways to make it more cost effective, because there are a lot of ditches that it seems like you could help clean out. I know when you're looking at the berm, if the water's higher next year, I can see it coming over the road. I only saw the water actually covering Meridian once last year on my way to church. I noticed it coming on my way home from church. It was covered, and that was it. So yes, I would love to not have that problem at all, but if you were looking at cost and we had to look at ways, the berm, granted, like I said, if our water level's higher next year, that could be a completely more of an issue, but I'm just trying to think of ways we can do this that would be cost effective and still keep people from being flooded out.
Okay, so as I see it, there's a couple issues. And I like this, we ought to have an alternative in our bag.
Right.
Maybe that's what we should come up with. And I'm just gonna talk here and everybody can jump on me. But the gentleman's suggestion, and what you're saying, if we bought a couple of pumps, we had the ability to pump, we'd have them in our back door. And we'd still have to go do some cleaning up of the drains because some of them just don't function properly. If we could build some measure so that we could prevent the backflow from coming.
Right.
But here's the real advantage, and I want to go back to Mr. Zimmerman. He's got 30-year history here, right, Jim? He says 30 years ago they had a plan, they never did it. They never even engineered it, right? So,
Raines has the drawings on it.
yeah, well, anyway, it's 30 years later. My view is that if we engineer it, and if things happen that put it out of reach, at least we have a plan. And we can say for modern days we have a plan. And maybe we should look at some interim measures because who knows what the Great Lakes are gonna do. The level could drop, and then you don't have a problem. But
Yeah.
some of the ditches still don't function.
No, and speaking from a mom standing at the bus stop at Harbor Point, going back now, my son's in 8th grade, so go back to even kindergarten. I've watched Mr. Cohn's ditch, Dan, who wasn't able to make it tonight. Not to speak for him, but I've watched what's happened in his yard. He has this old drain, waste, I don't know what it is, but it looks like it's falling apart. But it started out when we were first hanging out at the bus stop. The kids were always playing in his ditches while we were waiting for the bus. And then it gets to the point where he always had water in the ditches. There was even water even not draining on right at the base of Harbor Point in the road. Even if it wasn't raining, there's just this water there, and it's like, where is this water coming from? And then somebody was mentioning about the pump station that wasn't working anymore across the street. So I don't know exactly what the story is with any of that, but I have noticed water building up in his area that might need to be investigated.
Good point. All right, well, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna close this part of it down then, okay? And then we have a much simpler project on Swan Island. And the way we're structured, we got one motion here. I think we should discuss the Swan Island and then go ahead.
Yes.
It's much more straightforward and simpler. Who wants to present it?
The introductions are pretty much similar to what we talked about with Park Lane. I guess if, Bruce, if you want to touch base on what the proposed design for Swan Island is.
Have a drawing that you can put up?
Switch to the drawing, just hit
Okay.
the overhead or whatever.
Hit the what?
I think it's ELMO, this right there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, well, like the second part of our task was to look at the flooding that was on that occurred on the south end of Swan Island in the spring and into the summer. We did some investigation with the storm sewer, exactly where it went in, where it collected the water, and then eventually where the outfall was for it. So this is what kind of the plan that we came up with. I don't know how well you can see it, but what we found in the investigation, there's two catch basins at the end of the road, right before the T turnaround, one on the west and one on the east. It was assumed that those two catch basins went in a southerly direction to the canal there. What we found out by dye testing is actually the water went to the north and then up alongside the second house there before the end, and went into the boat well area there. So in order to alleviate the flooding, the basic design is to put a red valve or check valve in the manhole there at the street and where the driveway meets there, to keep the water flowing back from the canal into the system, and then the water that
Point to that on the map,
Sure.
where the check valve would go?
Here, can you point to it, Joe? Right there.
There, okay.
Right there. So that's where we're going to go. So when the water level rises, the check valve shuts and doesn't let the canal flood back into the street. But there's still obviously going to be water that's still coming down from the north to the south into those two catch basins. So we're going to create or build a pump station where that square's at the in the T turnaround area right there, and then pump it back into the canal. So this project is pretty straightforward compared to the first one. Should be very effective at draining the south end of Swan Island. And I think this one affects about 20 houses.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And Mr. Allen, is it? Dave? Yeah, you're welcome to come and ask any questions if you wish.
commission came out to our property owners, and I think that's gonna be very effective. There was some discussion as to where to put the pump station, but I think if Phil's okay with that, I don't have a problem with it. It seems like it'll work.
Like it'll work, okay.
Yeah. And the good news is it's all coming up that one drain, which seems very manageable.
As far as schedule is concerned, this project is much simpler, uncomplicated than what we just talked about on Park Lane. So they won't run, if we approve them tonight, they still won't, they're not gonna run on the same schedule. You're just gonna be way ahead of it.
I was just
Still have
up,
to get the permits.
yeah, I was just up north this past weekend, property up in Harbor Springs, and the height of the water at Lake Michigan is quite alarming. So next year is gonna be worse than this year, I hate to say, based on my experience, so.
Really high in Harbor Springs?
Extremely high,
Not
unbelievable.
frozen yet?
Not yet, unbelievably high. So when I was looking at that, I says, be nice to do something because it's gonna be worse this coming year, based on my opinion.
I don't know if we can get it done by spring because.
Well, yeah, but just
permitting,
something,
but-
because
all right.
this is gonna be ongoing.
Okay, anything else? Thank you. All right, with that, the motion before us, I'll read it. The Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission hereby recommends to the Grosse Ile Township Board the authorization of engineering, design, and the bidding of drainage improvements on both Swan Island Drive and Park Lane. It seems like in that motion, something's missing. So engineering, design, bidding, and both Swan Island and Park Lane. And at the same time, we're gonna simultaneously ask Wayne County
Yes,
to
Wayne County.
participate. So we gotta add that, somehow build this in, right, Jim?
I don't know that that has to be in the.
Doesn't have to be in the
action
motion?
item. No, I mean, that's just something we're gonna do.
Okay, so the record will show in the minutes then,
I mean, we can have it, in the history of the explanation, we can put in there, and I'll discuss it with the board, that we're gonna do that simultaneously. But yeah, it doesn't, I don't think it needs to be part of the action item.
all right, so we have before us this resolution. Are there any further questions from the commission on it? Hearing none.
I'm gonna second I'm gonna support the motion.
Support it? You're not
I'm gonna
going? You're
support
not
the
going?
motion.
Looking for a motion.
Motion.
Support.
Budesris made the motion, support by Budny. Any further questions? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. So thank you very much. Before we leave the subject, while the engineers are here, I would like, based on the last two comments we heard tonight, Derek? Yes. Based on the last two comments, there needs to be a discussion with you guys after you do more engineering. Is there an alternative that we could look at? Given that would be far cheaper, of just fixing some of the drains and coming up with a plan, and maybe building some measures to prevent backflow and whatnot that could be incorporated in an overall plan that we might do as step one. I mean, do you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Okay. Does the commission sort of concur with that?
Sure.
For
Yeah,
Park
I mean,
Lane?
like, if the bidding or whatever was outrageous, I mean, could we just go in and re-ditch? Would that, how much would that help? Would it be any help? Yeah, we wanna try and do something, I think.
Well, I think the biggest issue is the place where water can go.
Yeah.
That's the key problem. that we
So, I
have
mean,
to
if we could get some pumps in there and
Well,
at least have a plan, but do something on an interim basis, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. Sounds like some of them wouldn't be either.
I think, and then we also need to define, there's a couple of different problems going on up there, whether you're talking about the new construction, or whether you're talking about, pumps deployed in yards, cause water's coming over seawalls, that is one of the other issues on the south end. So, there's a couple of different things at play here that we just need to, have a conversation about.
So also remember too, when you go forward, Bruce and Joe, the two projects don't run simultaneous. In other words, we could move quicker on Swan Island and move it along, hopefully.
So we're gonna treat them as individual projects.
Absolutely, right.
Right, as far
Right.
as, yeah.
Okay,
And I think the scope of work is quite a bit different in both situations, so, you know, if we bid them together, I don't know that we're gonna necessarily receive a savings, because they're probably gonna be two different contractors, yeah. Right, right, exactly. Other one's gonna be grade all and, you know, yeah, yep, so.
Would the Swan Island project still require?
come up to the podium.
Swan Island project still
Ask the question on the
The
microphone.
Swan Island project still require all the Wayne County approvals and,
Yes, but
Those were-
I think they'll be much more simple.
okay.
Yeah, it still
That's-
needs permitting and everything, but just, I mean, it's different than the other project.
All right, but it still has to go through
Still
that whole
has to do it.
process. So it has a chance to get delayed.
Now, some of us are always in favor of just forgetting Wayne County, but the engineers will lose their license if we do that, and we could be sued.
Just get another engineer. Okay. All right,
Okay,
thank-
Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is that enough on drains?
I think so.
Moving on. Eric, you got the floor.
Couple of different items, water loss report, 13.421%. Hope to add to the column on main breaks and flushing. The treasurer and I had discussed that the other day quite a bit, so we're gonna try to estimate those quantities so we can build them into the water loss report. There's also another column that's provided for you in the water loss report, and I think we'll probably plan on doing this on a monthly basis as well, and that's a basic figure on I&I, just taking the treated gallons at the plant, which comes off Orion's monthly reports, and then balancing that against the gallons purchased, so the gallons that come into the community from GLWA to get an idea for what kind of I&I we have going on in the system. So we'll continue to build on that as time goes along, so. Any questions on the lost water report?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah.
Just looking at October, it's 20 million. That's purchased.
Correct.
Gallons billed is 31 million.
Right.
How can we do that?
Well, because of the way that we do our billing, so it's not month for month as we had talked about before, so.
Yeah, it's not inaccurate to look and say.
I
this
understand
was
the 3-month
October.
period.
Right. If we were doing monthly billings across the entire community, as you know, then we could take a look at gallons purchased for the month and gallons billed for the month, but that's not the case. And it's tiered too, so we do different sections of town, so it could be more in some sections than others in different months, so. That's why we always use the running average, which is the best representation.
Yeah, that's what I asked you how to do it, you know.
Right.
Average the 3 months and then see where our loss is in 3 months. And then
Yeah.
just continue that every 3 months.
Right, and this is more a representation over loss over time, a long period of time, than it is necessarily in the 3-month period, so.
Very interesting.
Okay.
I think one of the interesting things here, Les, gallons purchased in October and gallons treated, kind of gives us our I&I.
Yeah, that's the rain. That's the free water we're treating.
Right. It's big.
Numbers.
Okay, Derek?
2019 local roads project, as you know, we had received 350,000 or so in Wayne County funds for local roads projects. Unfortunately, the asphalt work for 2019 had to be delayed. They were getting ready to do the asphalt work township wide, and we got that big snowstorm in November, and then the weather never kind of cooperated afterwards. So that scope of that project had to be pushed to spring of 2020. So I just wanted to let the DPS Commission know that that's occurred. We did have a fair amount of crack sealing too that had to be delayed because of that weather issue. But we've been in contact with the vendor, the prime and also the sub, about making sure that we were top on their list for their 2020 projects. So as soon as they're capable of doing asphalt work. They'll be on the island first, hopefully, to address the balance of that project scope. But all the concrete work that was specified within that local road project, project list was taken care of in the fall, so that's been done. So, just to let you and the residents know that we still have some asphalt work left to do in the spring. Third on my report is just I wanted to have a brief conversation, the chairman and myself, with regards to our 2020 local roads project. There was a letter that was included in your packet for this month about the allocation for 2020. The township's going to be receiving $250,000 to fund that initiative for next year. A few members of the township have been in conversations with the county over the past couple of months with regards to taking another look at Church Road, trying to figure out a way to address that. I know that this commission has a long history, and the township has a long history with trying to deal with that problem. The initial idea was to utilize the $250,000 from the local road initiative in 2020 to help and to incentivize the county to do some work on Church. An additional idea was if there was drainage work that was necessary as part of repaving or doing something out on Church Road, that we have the drainage account to hopefully assist with that. We have been in communication with the county regarding design standards for Church. We did take it upon ourselves to go ahead and get a traffic count for Church Road, because that kind of drives some of the design standards. The design standards that the county is mandating based upon those traffic counts is something that I don't know is necessarily achievable based upon the impact to the private residences along Church. They're looking at a total travel width of 24 feet with a shoulder of 8 feet on either side, which is a pretty large footprint.
And that was after the travel count?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. So they've asked us if we would like to pursue a variance on those standards. So I did have a conversation with Ohio about what that variance would look like, and he suggested 22 feet of paved surface with 2-foot shoulders on either side. So I've submitted that to Elizabeth Taylor at the county and Amical Steel, as well as Gasmore, to see whether or not that would be considered. So I'm waiting on a response for that, and we might have to have a conversation with them about what the possibility of that is, because our 2020 project, local road initiative projects, are dependent upon how the Church Road conversation goes. We don't want to be doing paving for a local roads project in September or October again next year, so we kind of need an answer on whether or not Church Road is a possibility. And this is more for reconstruction. The additional conversation, if they're not willing to provide a variance on the design standards, could be a potential, like a resurfacing or something along those lines, if that's something that the township's interested in. So that's what's going on with regards to our 2020 dollars, and hopefully we have some good news to report back to this commission regarding some options on Church Road. But if not, I guess start thinking about that 2020 allocation, where we would want to put those dollars within the community for what local roads projects should Church Road not fly. So
You got to remember, with all these requirements they're talking about, how far will the 250,000 from the county and our 100,000 match go?
Right.
I mean, you're talking about maybe half mile, maybe a little over a quarter mile. So it's not going to do all the Church Road from the canal to
Right.
East River. And I kind of laugh about it because there's no shoulders now. And the county's going to stick to their rigid requirements by an ASHTO manual, a national manual. that says if you have 4,000 vehicles a day, you're gonna have 8-foot shoulders?
8-foot shoulders, yeah.
Wish we were a city, we'd take the damn road back. From the county. But here I go again about Wayne County.
Good.
Fire in the lanes.
Oh, well.
So that's the 2020 local roads projects. And then the last one, and fortunately Joe's in the audience, so he can speak to this too, but there was a question about the status of the engineering and design for the water main work that we're proposing for next year. I don't know, I believe everybody received a memo in their packet with regards to that bond status, so there was some good news there. But with regards to the engineering and design and bidding, Raines is stating that they're looking at the entire project as far as the design and engineering should be done by mid-January 2020. Permits could take up to 2 months between the county, Eagle, Corps of Engineer, and to be on the safe side, bid due date should be around mid-March 2020 is what they're stating. So, and if you have any questions about the greater detail about where things stand on the engineering end, Raines is here, so I'm sure they can touch base with you on that.
Oh, Les, I got the map here. So the water main is, we're talking about is from, on Meridian, from Parkway up to Thoroughfare, okay?
Yeah.
And on Church Road between West River and Meridian.
Yes.
Then the international water main replacement called the Schmidtke project. It's on Meridian between Voigt and Paulina. Right?
Right. We'd pick up the 12-inch water main at the corner of Voigt and eliminate that 6-inch between Voigt and Paulina.
Yep. Right. We've given a name to that. It's the
Cool.
It's the International Schmidtke Water Main Replacement Project. Thank you for the idea.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, Joe, I get concerned about bidding this stuff in April. So even if you don't have all the permits, you guys got to bid this early March. You want to get good bid prices.
Yeah, we can do it. I mean,
Don't be bidding at mid-March or late March. I mean, you got to bid
to
this.
be on a safe side, because usually the Corps of Engineer and Eagle take a good month.
I don't care if you have
month
all
and
the
a half.
permits. Bid it.
Okay, we'll do that, because we should be done by.
You did West River. You bid it before you had all the permits, if I remember right.
We did.
But don't wait for all the permits. You get
Okay,
a design.
sure. We'll do that.
Well, and you're saying that you should have all the engineering done by the middle of January?
Correct.
And you're saying bids should be due around mid-March, which means you'll probably go to bid in what, February?
Probably February.
Okay, good. That's even
Yeah,
better.
we'll do it. And just want to let you know, the only part need to be designed is the Meridian from Parkway to Thoroughfare. The other two sections are done. The Church Road and with the two courses are designed. Same thing with the Meridian from Paulina to Voigt. That one is already done, designed. So we just finished the topo and the lower section. And I'm not sure if you have time. Maybe after this meeting, need to sit down with you, need your opinion, probably Derek and you.
Okay, we can lay them out on the table in there, and everybody can stay if they want.
Sure.
Because there's the main question
Want
is,
us to talk about the canal crossing?
Actually, pipe burst in the 16 inches.
yeah, so there's on the east side, there's a 16-inch, an old 16-inch, and on the west side, there's an 8-inch.
8-inch, and somehow by the canal they change direction. The 16 go to the west side, and the
You'll
other
show
go
us
to-
on the table.
Sure.
Right, but the main question is whether we play in the 16-inch or we play in the 8-inch, right? Replace.
So Les, before our study session tonight, Joe laid this 8-foot-long drawing out. Started talking about it, and he lost me completely. So if you can stay.
What are you talking about, the 16-inch?
Yeah, he'll explain it. We don't want to take it for the meeting tonight. let's go through the meeting.
The
Anybody
16
can stay and go through this with them.
The 16-inch was put in the early 40s.
Correct. No, we're talking about maybe replace the 16 and abandon the 8 inches down the road.
8-inch was put in 38.
Correct. Correct. Now, the reason we're thinking about 16 inches, less impact on the road, because we're gonna go upsize it. The 8 gonna be upsized to 12, and when you upsize it, you're gonna the 8 inches. The location of the 8 inches under the road, we're gonna end up fixing half of the road.
16 inches off-road?
16, we can go size to size, so we don't impact anything above it.
But is it off the road?
Yes and no. It start up the road, then it goes back to
I'll
the
tell you
road.
what, this is a discussion for,
Yeah, we'll
after the meeting, we'll go over the plan. And anybody on the commission who wants to stay, we'd love to have you stay and talk about it. Okay? But bid it as soon as you can. What else, Derek?
I don't have anything else. That's the end of my report.
Ryan is not here because he couldn't be here tonight.
Right, Ryan's got a family emergency he had to deal with, but he did provide a bar screen status update to me and also to Rain. So, Joe, don't sit down too fast because we'll look for your update on the bar screen for the DPS Commission.
Derek, on letter B.
Yes.
For maintenance lead, John Kime, and John I know is in Florida.
Yes. Yep.
John and I went out and we located as many of the lead lines that I knew were there.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your assistance in going around with John
And I appreciate you buying lunch for me. But we have 56 that we know of, and maybe there might be another one or two, or there might be less ones. But I named 56 of 56 of them that I know are lead lines.
Good.
Are these service lines?
These are the lead service lines that have to be replaced.
And I did have a conversation with a lot of the other DPW managers this morning at our monthly meeting about maybe doing a collaborative bid for replacements, and it seemed like there was some interest there, especially with our neighboring communities, so Trenton, Riverview, and potentially Woodhaven seemed like they were pretty interested in partnering on that. So, we'll keep you apprised of that.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
On
bar screen.
The bar screen. Today we received, after we talked to the supplier regarding the hydrology, because they changed a little bit the equipment size, so that affect a little bit the hydrology. So they did a little bit calculation, and per their email that we received today, they met all the DEQ hydrology as far as the calculation. So we're going ahead with this project, and they still promise like they should be able to start working on it by February, if not January. It's gonna take a good 3 months to manufacture this the bar screen.
Well, there's a lot of questions at the plant, and I know some of you, I know Ted's been involved, on the lab and the boiler, the HVA system. It's nothing we have to talk about yet, right?
No, I want to thank Ted for being involved in having those conversations, and I think what we're going to end up doing, we've got some research we have to do, or Ted's going to be meeting with Ryan, with a vendor tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and we'll bring back to the DPS Commission a recommendation after that research has been done, so that you guys have a kind of a package put together that you can discuss. And
that'll be coming back to us.
Oh, did they get the boiler fixed?
What? The boiler?
The boiler?
Yeah, that's part of the conversation. We're reviewing all the options in front of us regarding that. So
this is almost like an emergency repair, isn't it?
I think that obviously they need heat over there. So, but we want to make sure we make the right decision on it, because there's a couple
temporary heat, so
they're
getting by.
There's a couple of things at play based upon a rooftop unit, which uses steam currently, and whether we move away from that. So there's a lot of different moving parts to it.
Okay, we're moving on then?
Yes.
Are there any items for the commissioners? We'll go around the table. Jim?
No, I'm done. Other than just to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and certainly everybody on the commission.
Yeah, same here. Happy holidays to everybody.
John?
Nothing at this time.
Phil?
Nothing further.
Les?
Oh, you know me. I was wondering why we don't get a report on these bridges. We're in charge of the roads, but the roads go over the bridges.
Les, we've never been asked to be involved in the bridges. The township board and the township attorney and township manager are dealing with the county on the bridges, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, well, that's fine with me too, but maybe they should let us know because a lot of people are asking me what's going on with the bridges.
And me, so, and I'm happy to tell them I don't know. But I want to take your question to Derek. It's my understanding that in January, there's going to be some kind of meeting, and this month yet, they're taking bids.
Yeah, so Trustee Budny and myself and Ted as well have been involved in a lot of the conversations. And Jim, if you want to explain it.
The bids were supposed to be December 6th, and that was moved to, I believe, the 20th. We missed a meeting or two. We've been having them every month with the head of bridges, and that will start back up in January to have a monthly meeting with them. What's going on is they're still trying to bid them out, and once they do that, then we'll have some timeline. Till we get a contractor. They're really not giving us any timeline. One thing that will happen hopefully after this December 20th, they'll get a contractor for one of the phases. They do plan on having a town hall type meeting here on Grosse Ile with the residents and the commission, anybody that wants to come, which will include not only the Wayne County people, but the contractor himself, which is good.
I know that the township's been in pretty constant communication with the residents over by Hickory Island. I know the Mesa Island Bridge is scheduled for the spring. I was at a pre-con meeting with the vendor a couple of weeks ago because we were representing the township utilities to make sure that it was coordinated, the activity was coordinated with us. But that a letter has gone out to the residents there explaining when that project will start. But yeah, it's very difficult to hammer down a concrete schedule with regards to the free bridge, just simply because there's a lot going on with, a lot of things are up in the air with it.
So Les, I think you raise a good point. That's where it sits right now. So.
Well, one other thing I got, next year's budget, we need to start looking at getting a new dump truck. The guys in the crew, when I was out Friday, they were talking to me about the truck. That was the truck that I bid out in 1998. It's a 99 International. And they're saying, let's look for a new dump truck, be able to sell this one while we still get some money out of it.
5-yard or 10-yard?
5.
Okay. I think, I hope with our new director, we're going to get all kinds of new ideas in the budget, so we'll see.
Well, I'm trying to pump a few into his head.
Ted, anything?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you.
Everybody too.
To the board for the work they've done this year. It's been a busy year.
It has been a busy year, and so now the chairman's report, I left that till last. We had a couple good articles in here about recycling. They were in the Free Press in September, 2 weeks in a row, and about recycling and about how it's becoming more of a challenge. And so we took a chance, this commission did, on our refuse contract, and so far, cross our fingers, it's working out well.
Yeah, the articles were included in there because as I was going through the minutes, Commissioner Kennedy had mentioned he wanted to see if we could get hard copies of those, so that's why they're in there. I'm glad you brought that up. If you looked at the bills, you would have seen a split bill for November's waste hauling service, half going to waste management, the other half going to priority, and they were both right around 24,000, I think, each. And then the residents have been directed up until now to get a hold of priority and then pay a $15 fee for trash cans and have them delivered to their house. Those trash cans, we have about 10 of them here at City Hall. So residents can now come here, pay here, pick up their trash can at City Hall. That way they don't have to hassle with that if they choose to go that route. And then last one, and I don't mean to hijack your report, Mr. Chairman, but we have had a fair amount of backlash from the residents about glass. There's a lot of people that really want to recycle glass. So I did talk to the vendor, and maybe this is a good foray and a good finger in the water or foot in the water type approach to a potential drop-off location for a single stream glass material location, a material drop-off location. So he was going to talk to me about options. He was going to put some options together for us. I'll bring those back to you because I think of all the comments I've received about the new trash service, the most of them have been about the elimination of the ability to recycle glass. People really don't like that. So if we provided that option to them, if there was little or no cost to it, I think it would satisfy a lot of them. It might be a good, sample size for drop-off locations.
Yeah, yeah. But is there, I thought the reason we weren't doing it is because there really isn't any recycling of it. And so they hit, I mean, it's possible. Yeah. And we'll take a look at what he, what Vince comes up with. But, sometimes you just have to, educate them that, yeah, you want to, but you're not doing anything.
Right, and we explain that to them when they call that, the commodity, there's not a ton of value to it. And I think one of the bigger issues is when it's a commingled stream, it gets crushed in the compactor and it's commingled the glass shards with all the other stuff, and it's basically garbage at that point. So there might still be some value, according to Vince, if it's separated out, but we'll find out what he's got there.
Yep.
And we'll
Derek, there's no value for colored glass.
Right.
One problem. And what I was told by somebody that spent their life in the business was that there is marketability for recycled glass, but most of it comes from industrial recycling. In other words, somebody that uses glass in their manufacturing, they'll have broken pieces and stuff like that, and that's recyclable, but that's basically pure glass. That the common glass that we get with our peanut butter jars and jelly jars and stuff like that is almost no value.
And Vince might come back with that. Yeah. I asked him to look into it. He said he would take a look at it. I mean, he might come back and say the vendor has no interest in it. It doesn't make any kind of sense. So
correct.
I'll let you guys know how that.
Well, I certainly don't want to pay more for it.
No. So we'll let you.
People
guys
have to face the reality.
Yep.
The recycling. These articles point to not only the problems of shipping it to other countries, but that the costs here are going to go up for recycling. And I don't think we want that. So
the other thing worth mentioning is I know that the vendor has been very good about addressing residents' concerns. I mean, I think even if you pop on social media, they even monitor that, which is pretty remarkable. So I think we've been very happy with them so far. They've been very responsive to any complaints we've had, which we haven't had a lot. You're gonna have them no matter what. We had them with waste management, and everybody has issues with waste hauling because it's a dirty business. But like I mentioned before, it's how they respond to it, and they've done a very good job with it so far.
Today was, I live in Hawthorne. Today collection was, I noticed several recycling bins, and they were half full, and they had nothing but recycling stuff in them. So the effort is paid off, including no pizza boxes.
No pizza boxes this time?
No detergent bottles. Anyway.
Derek, is there somebody on the companies by the name of Cunningham?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because there was something on Facebook today that somebody was in that Grozeal now was complaining about the garbage truck on such street, I don't remember. And this person that came on there, I think his last name was Cunningham, he said that you would call us and we will correct that problem immediately.
Yeah, and I haven't met everybody with the organization. They might have a social media director or something, and that might be that guy. I know that Daly was one that was on there that was addressing concerns. You know, Vince had asked me, you know, what social media outlets do people go on? What Facebook pages? Because they watch that stuff, and I know that.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it this morning.
Right, exactly, and I want to stress to the residents that that's not the venue to go and make complaints. The venue is either the contractor or the township, and we'll make sure it's taken care of. But the fact that they're going to that extra step is definitely commendable and remarkable based upon my experiences. But yeah, I think I saw a couple of different names that I didn't recognize, but they're obviously company employees.
Just two little comments for me. Derek mentioned it, but you all have a memo in your packet outlining from Ann that we sold our $6 million bond issue for the net interest cost of 2.26%. Now, I know the interests are down, but when we put this together, I and Ann discussed 4% interest rate on a 20-year bond. So that's really a good rate. So then I asked Ann, I said, when she called me last week to tell me the good news, we have a AAA bond rating. But I said, well, who helped put the prospectus together? So whenever you sell a bond issue in the public sector for more than $2 million, you have to prepare what's called a prospectus. It's a description of the community, of the bond, whoever's selling the bonds. What's our worth? What's our wherewithal? What are we going to do with the money? I mean, it's a story about Grosse Ile. And of course, we as a bond consultant, Benzinski and Company, financial advisor, but Ann said, well, I helped him put that together. So when you see Ann in February, when we're doing budget time, keep in mind that we're going to save $1.3 million over the 20 years in the difference in the interest cost. Ann did a good job.
Yeah, excellent. She really did.
I want to publicly compliment her for her handling of this. And when we see her in February at budget time, I hope we'll remember to give her her compliment due. So just wanted to mention that. And the other thing is, Phil, I keep getting, whenever I miss a meeting and you run it, it always goes fast. And some have said I talk too much. I'm trying to control that. But
Today didn't work.
Not well.
It didn't work today.
Doesn't work.
We'll try to get in February.
Merry Christmas to everybody. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Whom supported the meeting adjourned, 9 o'clock. Happy holidays to everybody. The DPS Commission is signing off. Meeting's adjourned.